Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Strong. I'm a certified professional life coach, and I'm based here in New York City. I've been a certified professional coach now for a number of years, and I help men and women across the United States explore, enhance, and expand their lives in a whole host of different areas. I help people around health and wellness. I help people with their families, with their relationships, finding balance, finding fulfillment, just to name a few. And I have to tell you, I have the best job on the planet. I love being a life coach, so I feel very blessed that I get to have this job. So I have to tell you that this is how it all started. Starting Over, you may remember this show on NBC from a number of years ago. It was hosted by Rhonda Britton and Iyanla Vanzant, and I was immediately hooked on the whole idea of life coaching. I had not encountered it until that time. And I was devastated when they took it off of the air. The reason I bring that up is because very soon after, I was struggling with some imbalance and burnout in my own job as an EVP at an ad agency here in New York City. And so I actually ended up hiring my own life coach named Damon, who I worked with 5 years ago and I continue to work with today. But just even after a few short weeks of working with Damon, I was making some really magnificent changes in the workplace. I was setting concrete goals, I was saying no to projects, and I was respecting my time first for the first time in a very long time. So I almost immediately was able to stabilize my career and start focusing on some of the personal goals that I had. And in no time, I found myself in this amazing relationship that I'm still in today. I finally got that muscular body that I had always been looking for. I spend more time with my family and friends than ever before. And even better, my happiness level expands exponentially every year that I continue to work with him. So I was so impressed by the changes that I made in my life and the life that I had created with Damon that I decided to go back to school myself and become accredited as a life coach so that I could help other people get what I achieved in working with Damon, the life coach, over the past 5 years. In terms of my degrees and my credentialing and my education in the life coaching field, I actually received my certification from a school called the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching. I have a lot of education through the Landmark Forum. I'm a master practitioner of energy leadership, and I'm also an accredited ACC coach through the International Coach Federation, which is the governing body that governs all of us coaches who are accredited. There are three things that I think separate me from other life coaches and that make me unique. The first is that my career in advertising inspires me to use tremendous amounts of creativity throughout the life coaching process. So all the work that I do with my clients is always surprising and fresh and highly engaging. I was working with a guy last November who had some fitness goals about getting in shape and just could not get to the gym. And after some failed innovative ideas, we finally came up with the idea of having a trainer go to his house 3 days a week and ring his doorbell in the morning. And when he answered the door, the trainer would actually be shirtless. And the rippling abs, I never saw this for myself, but the rippling abs and great torso of this guy, this trainer, was inspiration enough for him, the client, to go and get changed and follow the trainer to the gym. Needless to say, this client met his goals quite quickly, which is great. Another thing that I think makes me unique as a coach is that I'm pretty hell-bent on making the process of expansion as fun as possible. And I do that often through role-playing. Role-playing doesn't always make sense, but what I find is that practice helps get clients unstuck and catapults them into action very quickly. And just as an example, last week I was working with a woman who is refining some of her dating skills. And so I brought in an actor to role play with her. And she was a little bit uncomfortable and fumbling at first, but eventually she got into it and they started picking each other up. They started having conversations, asking the right kinds of questions, and moving the date forward. And we would stop at the end of every role play and debrief on what worked and what didn't work. And I think that a fun activity like this, the interactivity of the exercise, really raised the confidence of my client, and it was probably the most effective way to move her forward in the fastest way possible. So fun and role-playing is another thing that distinguishes me. And then the last thing I think that makes me unique is that I'm incredibly intuitive as a listener. I listen to my clients on many different levels. Sometimes I have clients who actually think I can read their minds, but in fact, really what I'm doing is I'm just listening at a level so deep that they haven't experienced before. And so that's one of the things that distinguishes me. And I think intuitive listening is kind of a cool trick, but it's a really important one in helping me build trust with clients. My personality is incredibly extroverted. I am quite vivacious and a pretty funny guy. I have a strong passion for life. I love people. I'm curious about people, and I'm most fascinated with kind of how our brains work and how we are hardwired, because it so helps me in coaching. And I love positive psychology and all that kind of stuff. But when I'm coaching, I use so many different parts of my personality, depending on the client that I'm working with. But generally speaking, I would say that my style is compassionate, direct, honest, nurturing, with a dose of tough love thrown in there every once in a while when it's needed. But the most important thing is that I meet my clients where they're at. So if I have a client who is particularly sad, I'll draw on my personality trait of empathy. If I have a client who's confused, I'll be inquisitive. If I have a client who's excited, I'll draw upon my cheerleading skills. So it's important for me to meet the client, where they're at. In terms of my coaching process, there are essentially 5 parts to my coaching process, and they happen in no particular order. But the first one is, at some point, we're usually dealing with life purpose, their values, identifying what their passions are, and trying to figure out how they're going to spend the rest of their days on this planet in the most rewarding way possible. The second part is about goal setting. So I work with clients to set goals that are smart, that are measurable, achievable, reasonable, and time-oriented. And then we develop the strategies and tactics that will help them get there. The third part of my coaching process is about dealing with barriers. Where clients are clear about some of the barriers that have come up in the past, but we deal with the ones that also come up during the coaching process. And then we develop what I call obliteration plans, where we actually get rid of those barriers so that people can move forward. The fourth part is about dealing with bravery and exploring bravery and calling upon our valor in order to step into bold action in our lives. And then finally, the fifth part is about accountability. My biggest job as a life coach is to help people do what they say they're going to do and keep them accountable for that. And I have so many great tools to do that, like the phone and email and texting and so forth. But the single biggest tool that I have is the cell phone camera. It's the coach's best friend. Nothing proves to me that you've done an assignment like a picture taken on your cell phone. So I use that quite frequently in my coaching sessions. The type of people that I deal with typically on a day-to-day basis really span the spectrum of the human condition. I work with people who are young and old, who are gay or straight, who are male or female, who are single and married. So I don't really work with a particular type of person, but I would say that I work with some groups. Those would be professionals, people who are in transition, and then people who are dealing with health and wellness issues. So for professionals, I'm often helping them enjoy their careers more and get more out of their careers, mastering work-life balance. And my most favorite is when I'm helping people start businesses that radiate out of their life purpose and passions. That's always great. With people who are in transition, my job is to help kind of minimize the pain and maximize the pleasure of the transition process. So whether someone's moving from single life to married life to single life, or from work life to retirement, whatever that may be, I work with them to maximize the pleasure in that process. And then in terms of working with people on health and wellness issues, there's such a vast array of things that I deal with. For example, I deal with a lot of the weighty issues, emotional issues that come from carrying weight for many years and during the process of losing weight as well. I help clients who are changing their body shapes. I help people who are embracing certain disease states or accepting certain physical limitations. There's a quote that I love that I just have here in front of me from Janine Roth, who's this amazing author and seminar leader in the world of emotional eating. And she says that the shape of our bodies obeys the shape of our beliefs about ourselves. And I just love that quote because that's really what I do as a coach every day. I change beliefs in tandem while people are actually changing their bodies. So I just love that quote from Janine. The biggest difficulty people have in achieving major goals in their life, without question, is fear. Fear of change, fear of success, fear of failure. And I actually love working with clients around fear because when I can get a client through a baby step in facing fear, they're infinitely more willing to go at fear again. And once we start that process, life opens up and really starts to move forward quite quickly. So I love working with clients and getting them through things they're scared about. There are, of course, the external blocks that stand in the way of people reaching their goals. There's lack of money, lack of time, lack of resources, lack of education. And so we develop action plans together that will help us get more of those things. But without question, the most difficult blocks that come up are the ones that are internal. And I have a little chart here. I call them the Gales. These are the internal blocks: gremlins, assumptions, interpretations, and limiting beliefs. The G stands for gremlins, and yes, it's the one from the movies that you think of. And the gremlin is that monstrous little voice in your head that tells you that you're not good enough or that you're not worthy. And so I coach clients about identifying their gremlin, giving it a name. Oftentimes we make it tangible through a toy or some other object so that people can kind of play with their gremlin and disempower it and get rid of their negative thinking. And there's a whole lot more to that. The A block stands for assumptions. I work with clients to coach them around the assumptions that they make, that because something has happened in the past, that it doesn't necessarily have to happen again. The I block is interpretations, right? So people who make up stories about things that have happened in the past, or they crystal ball into the future about what things are going to be like. So I challenge clients on that and try to open their perspective. And then the L of Gale is limiting beliefs. And limiting beliefs are things that we as humans pick up as we're children about ourselves, about other people, and I work with them to break those limiting beliefs and have, again, a broader perspective about what's going on in the world. The three biggest mistakes that people make when they're going after their goals are what I call sparkling, hiding, and misguided adventures. So sparkling is when a client will bite off more than they can chew or go to a wild extreme when they set a goal. So for example, I have a client who will go on a 60-day juice feast but not have any support plan in place in order to do that. And so then inevitably they'll fail. And so I coach clients to build little action plans that have achievable little steps that also have little rewards built in through the process. That will actually help clients meet goals and combat sparkling. And the reason I call it sparkling is because it's like a sparkler on July 4th that burns hot and bright and then it fizzles out fast. The second mistake that people make is what I call hiding. This is when clients set goals and then they don't tell anybody that they've set a goal. So I'll have clients who have decided they're going to quit smoking, but they don't tell anybody, their family, their friends, their coach. And they don't tell them because they're afraid that if they fail that they're going to look bad. So when clients are setting goals, I always encourage them to share with as many people as possible, ask for support and celebration as they're going about reaching their goals. And then finally, the third mistake that people make in goals is what I call misguided adventures. And that is the client who has a goal, but upon further investigation, we discover that in fact it's not their goal. So for example, I have a client who says that they want to be a doctor, but we find out that in fact it's actually their father's goal and not their own goal. So I coach clients to identify goals that are personal, that emanate from within their life purpose and their values, and that ignite passion when they think about what it's going to be like when they attain those. So those are some of the key mistakes that people make in reaching goals. The last question was, is there anything that you didn't ask? And I just want to share a few things about myself just so you can get to know me a little bit better. On a personal level, I'm a wild fan of the show Lost. I play oodles of tennis, and I'm usually the guy at the Apple store who's buying products when they immediately hit the shelves. I can't wait for the iPad to come out. I have a tremendous relationship and set of friends and family, and I have a house in upstate New York that I go to on the weekends where I can breathe in as much nature for 2 days before I return to the urban jungle of Manhattan.